President Biden condemns campus violence, speaking out for the first time in a week.
Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is.
As tensions across the nation reach a boiling point. Tonight, police clash with demonstrators in Portland and Washington, D.C. The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, I'm James Brown in for Nora, and we'll begin tonight with President Biden's sharp criticism today of the violence that has broken out at protests on America's college campuses over the Israel-Hamas war. In recent weeks, nearly 2,000 people have been detained or arrested at dozens of schools. There were more protests today at Portland State, George Washington University, the University of Pennsylvania, and NYU. Speaking at the White House today, President Biden made his most extensive comments to date on the protests, condemning anti-Semitic slurs, vandalism, trespassing, and major disruptions to classes and graduations at some universities. New York City Mayor Eric Adams says nearly half of those arrested earlier this week at Columbia University and nearby City College were not students at those schools. Adams claims outside agitators are radicalizing students. CBS's Nancy Cordes leads off our coverage tonight from the White House.
White House officials say it was the sheer number of violent encounters on college campuses over the past 2 days that prompted President Biden to speak out.
There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos.
His comments came in the wake of nearly 2,000 arrests at more than 30 colleges and universities.
Start tearing the barricade.
Just today, protesters were ejected from a library at Portland State University that they had occupied for 3 days. Inside, police say they found ball bearings, paint balloons, spray bottles of ink, and DIY armor.
Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest.
Palestine will be free.
Like many protesters, President Biden has expressed concern about the plight of Palestinian civilians. More than 34,000 killed, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. But when asked today if he would change his policies towards Israel, as the protesters have been demanding, Biden said simply,
no.
The unrest is now threatening to become an election issue. Young people are a key Democratic voting bloc.
Biden needs to listen to what the students are calling for, which is an end to a genocide funded by the United States. So first things first, stop funding Israel.
In battleground Wisconsin, Donald Trump argued Biden should have spoken out sooner.
There's a big fever in our country, and he's not talking.
But Trump also made this unfounded claim about campus demonstrators.
They do come from other countries, and they are paid.
Some Republicans have urged President Biden to send in the National Guard to quell campus protests, but he said no to that today. CBS News was first to report that the Biden administration is now considering bringing some Palestinians from war-torn Gaza to the U.S. as refugees. JB?
Nancy, thank you very much. One of the most intense flashpoints is the campus of UCLA. Police broke up an encampment overnight, and bulldozers were brought in today to scoop up trash and tents. Some buildings were covered in graffiti. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti is there.
Early morning chaos on the campus of UCLA.
These are CHPA riot police.
Hundreds of officers in riot gear clashed with protesters.
Get back! Get back!
With support from multiple agencies, officers moved in, tearing down barricades and dismantling tents, firing rubber bullets and flashbangs. CBS's Carter Evans was there as police stepped into action.
We're looking at what might be the end of the protest here at this encampment. Police have got the protesters surrounded, pushing them up against a wall there, but they are not giving up.
The pro-Palestinian encampment set up by students 1 week ago was declared unlawful by the university Tuesday night.
This is an attack on democratic rights. This is outrageous.
More than 200 people were arrested, arms zip-tied behind their backs and led away.
We need to resist. We need to keep protesting, and that's the only way change will be made.
And new tonight, Manhattan's district attorney confirms a police officer who was involved in clearing protesters inside Columbia University's Hamilton Hall fired his gun. No one was injured. CBS's Lilia Luciano spoke with New York City Mayor Eric Adams earlier this afternoon.
We saw a change in protest behavior when we saw destruction of property, taking over buildings. We saw the patterns that these individuals that we identify are used to doing.
Mayor Adams says outside agitators known to police were arrested alongside the student protesters.
There's a difference between the protests that are happening outside the gates and the protests in the encampment. Who of these dangerous people were arrested inside Hamilton Hall?
Well, I'm not sure that if we're asking the question that if someone is dangerous that uses a hammer to break into a building, destroy property while they're in that building, burglarizing that building. Burglary is one of our 7 major crimes.
Back here on the UCLA campus, cleanup is underway.
The encampment behind me has been cleared out, and tonight there's an increased police presence here on campus, along with calls for the chancellor to step down. Meanwhile, all classes have been moved online for the rest of the week, JB.
Thank you, Jonathan. Tonight, mandatory evacuations are in place in areas around Houston, Texas, as a major river there quickly rises. Nearly 40 million people are on alert for flash flooding. That's following days of torrential rains and severe thunderstorms. CBS's Omar Villafranca reports from hard-hit Southeast Texas.
Parts of Livingston, Texas, waterlogged after overnight storms soaked the Southeast Texas town. Up to 8 inches of rain fell in some areas this morning, leaving homes and businesses looking like lakefront property. We tried to get to Livingston, but couldn't. Heavy downpours drenched major highways and slowed traffic during the morning commute. We could only get as far as Cold Spring, 17 miles away. The main road in town is shut down. We found residents taking horses and even pet pigs to drier, higher ground.
About an hour and a half ago, it was about waist deep in my backyard.
Luckily, Vanessa Russell's home is on stilts, but her confidence is not high after she found out the Lake Livingston Dam across the street was open to relieve the swollen lake, dumping millions of gallons into her neighborhood.
It's horrible. Do not move to a floodplain, ever.
Oh, no way. Further east in College Station, a woman tried to drive through a flooded parking lot.
Okay, that got bad very quickly.
She abandoned her car once the water became too deep.
She is okay. That is the important part. Her car, maybe not so much.
In northern Houston, this neighborhood also washed out. People there walking through water that reached to their knees. Houston's Mayor John Whitmire.
It appears the worst is yet to come.
High water vehicles like this one are the only way to get around certain neighborhoods. Here in San Jacinto County, emergency crews have already rescued 32 people. And with more rain in the forecast, that number may go up. JB?
Omar with the tough news. Thank you, Omar. Tonight, one of the nation's busiest highways is completely shut down in a bustling area of Connecticut. A massive fire after a gasoline tanker crashed also severely damaged an overpass. No one was seriously hurt, but this could have a huge economic impact in the Northeast. CBS's Tony Aiello reports from the scene.
Raging flames and black smoke turned dawn into darkness after the multi-vehicle crash on I-95 in Norwalk, Connecticut this morning. Fire officials say a car swerved in front of a truck pulling a flatbed trailer as a fuel tanker approached, loaded with 8,500 flammable gallons, all colliding under the Fairfield Overpass Bridge, igniting a massive fire. Ironically, it happened near the headquarters of Norwalk Fire.
The bridge was damaged. The heat from the burning fuel compromised some of the bridge, so that bridge is going to have to come down.
While firefighters used foam to battle the blaze, officials say roughly 4,000 gallons of the gasoline load have burned or run off. The crash occurred on the southbound lane of I-95, a busy stretch of the north-south interstate with more than 145,000 vehicles traveling through daily. The morning commute turned into a chaotic mess, with thousands of vehicles diverted to local roads around the accident scene after state police shut down the highway in both directions.
For a lot of truckers, we are on the clock, so we can only work 14 hours and drive 11 hours. So when this impact, it slows down the delivery time for our loads.
They will begin dismantling that fire-damaged overpass early Friday morning with an eye on reopening this critical highway for rush hour Monday, JB.
Tony Aiello, thank you very much. Today was the 6th day of testimony at former President Donald Trump's so-called hush money trial in Manhattan. Before the jury heard from a former attorney for Stormy Daniels, there was a hearing on more potential violations of a gag order by the former president. CBS's Robert Costa is at the courthouse.
Former President Trump, already fined $9,000 for violating a gag order, could be penalized again, as Judge Juan Merchan this morning considered 4 additional violations.
This judge, who's totally conflicted, has me under an unconstitutional gag order.
Prosecutors cited several examples, including this about future witness Michael Cohen.
He got caught lying in the last trial.
On the stand today, Stormy Daniels' former attorney Keith Davidson, who testified how he negotiated a $130,000 payment from Cohen to pay Stormy Daniels for her story before the 2016 election.
And you had sex with him?
Yes.
Davidson acknowledged texting with National Enquirer editor Dylan Howard the night Trump won, writing, "What have we done?" Howard replied, "Oh my God." Asked to clarify the text, Davidson told the jury there was an understanding that their activities may have assisted Trump's campaign. Trump has denied any wrongdoing and has denied knowing details about the payment. So today, the prosecution played an audio recording for the jury in which Cohen tells Davidson that Trump hates the fact that we did it. Davidson testified that was a reference to the payment to Daniels. Trump's lawyers, meanwhile, tried to paint Davidson as a serial extortionist of celebrities, citing alleged deals related to Lindsay Lohan, Charlie Sheen, and Hulk Hogan, and that he did the same with Trump.
They're doing a good job at showing sort of the seedy, dirty underbelly of this world that Keith Davidson peddles in. By all accounts, this is what this man does for a living. It's his bread and butter.
And today, Trump falsely claimed that he's not able to testify due to the gag order. That's not true. He is able to testify. The gag order just prohibits him from criticizing the jury or the witnesses. JB.
Robert Costa in New York, thank you. Arizona's near total ban on abortion has been repealed. Governor Katie Hobbs made that official today, undoing a law that dated back to 1864. This summer, a law passed in 2022 will go back into effect. That allows abortions up to the 15th week of pregnancy. Some abortion rights advocates want that to be extended to 24 weeks and are collecting signatures to put that on the ballot in November. Here in Washington, House Republicans are bracing for another mutiny against their leader from the conference's far right. This time, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is threatening to move ahead with the vote to remove House Speaker Mike Johnson using the same procedure that ousted Kevin McCarthy. But this time, Johnson has an unlikely ally. In an interview for this Sunday's 60 Minutes, our Norah O'Donnell sits down with House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries.
9 months after getting the job of Speaker, Republican Kevin McCarthy of California got dumped by the far-right wing of his party. Following 3 weeks of paralysis, Mike Johnson of Louisiana took his place.
I want to thank you all for the trust that you have instilled in me.
After he worked with Democrats to pass the foreign aid bill that included $61 billion for Ukraine, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who opposed it, said she will follow through with the threat to oust him. Jeffries told us he works to find common ground with the other side of the aisle, and at least one Republican who might be happy about that is Speaker Johnson.
Johnson, at some point today.
This past week, Democrats said they would vote against Congresswoman Greene's effort to remove him.
Has Speaker Johnson asked for your help?
He has not. And our view would traditionally be, let the other side work its own mess out. But when that mess starts to impact the ability to do the job on behalf of the American people, then a responsible thing at that moment might be for us to make clear that we will not allow the extremists to throw the Congress and the country into chaos.
You can see Norah's conversation with leader Hakeem Jeffries Sunday night on 60 Minutes. If you're looking to buy a home, your monthly cost just went up again. We'll show you why when we come back. The body of a fifth construction worker has been recovered from the wreckage site at Baltimore's Key Bridge. Miguel Angel Luna Gonzalez's body was found inside a submerged truck. One other victim is still missing. 6 members of a roadwork crew plunged to their deaths in March when a container ship lost power and crashed into a support column, collapsing the bridge. Homebuyers beware, mortgages are getting more expensive. One day after the Fed left interest rates unchanged, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage jumped to more than 7.2%. That's the highest in more than 5 months. And this comes at a bad time for buyers. More than a third of all home sales each year come between March and June. Here come the cicadas and their distinct sound. Billions are expected to emerge from underground across more than a dozen states. Details straight ahead. Parts of the U.S. are bracing for a historic bug invasion. It's already underway in the South, and this spring, by some estimates, about 1 trillion cicadas will emerge. And as CBS's Dave Malkoff reports, a lot of people are bugging out.
You're listening to the song of the season, sung by male cicadas who have been living on the roots of this Georgia tree since 2011.
He just came out of the ground. It all gets started just after sunset when they emerge from the earth where they've lived for 13 years. They don't even have working wings till they molt out of their baby bodies, where they're mature enough to fly off.
The southern soil just reached the trigger temperature of 64 degrees Fahrenheit.
Where's the sound actually coming from? It's hard to pinpoint.
It really is. It's kind of an ambient sound. They go to the top of the tree, and that's kind of where they do their mating ritual.
The eggs then drop back down here, a cycle that happens every 13 years. But this year is special.
I think I got one.
In central Illinois, Dr. Katie Dana and her son are waiting on the 17-year brood.
Yeah, it's a boy.
And the 13-year ones. All in the same area, overlapping for the first time since 1803, when Thomas Jefferson was president.
And you can see other kinds of cicadas.
And those ones are still here in Urbana at the massive bug collection at the University of Illinois.
These specimens are from the great grandparents.
We could talk about 1 trillion of these critters.
It's a big number, isn't it?
Yeah. All this waiting and emerging and molting.
How was he able to jump on me if he doesn't even have wings yet?
Got rid of that baby body and flew home then.
And freaking out the neighbors will come to an end about 2 weeks after they pop out of their shells. That is, if they make it to the treetops.
Everything eats these things.
This may actually be bad news for fishermen because with all the cicadas dropping in the lake here, the fish may already be full and not biting. Dave Malkoff, CBS News, Lincoln County, Georgia.
I'd pass on that stand-up. All right, folks, tonight's Heart of America is next. The heroes who stepped up to save a couple from their burning house.
This portion of the CBS Evening News is sponsored by Verzenio.
Finally tonight, Heart of America. 2 members of a Florida police department and a Good Samaritan who saved a couple from their burning home. Body cam video shows the scene when Officer Nicholas Jones and Detective Matthew Lemos arrived at the scene in Cape Coral. They didn't hesitate to help a woman that was trapped in her garage and also tackle the flames with the fire extinguisher, that is. Then, with the help of a neighbor named Vincent Navy, they rescued the woman's husband, an amputee who needed assistance getting out in his wheelchair. The couple and their 2 dogs all made it out safely before the fire department arrived. The heroes were honored with life-saving awards for their efforts.
We really thrive on the community support that we get.
Those 3 to 5 minutes felt like eternity. I was just happy that they got out.
3 heroes who put their lives on the line to save others. Tonight's Heart of America. And that's tonight's evening news. For Nora O'Donnell, I'm James Brown. Good night.